My VP tried to humiliate me in front of the entire department, then told HR to prepare my termination paperwork like it was already decided. He thought I was cornered. He didn't know my laptop held years of approvals, emails, and records he'd personally signed off on, documents that proved I'd been following his orders the entire time. I didn't raise my voice or defend myself in the moment. I just closed my laptop, smiled politely, and waited. Because when the truth finally came out, it wouldn't just save my job. It would cost him everything. My name is Rachel Monroe, and the moment my VP, Kevin Dalton, tried to humiliate me, I knew he was panicking, because people who are confident don't need an audience, but insecure executives love one, especially when they think they're about to make an example out of someone. And that's exactly what Kevin tried to do during a department-wide meeting on a Monday morning when he stopped my presentation mid-sentence, leaned back in his chair, and loudly questioned my judgment, my competence, and my alignment with leadership, each word carefully chosen to sting, to embarrass, and to signal to HR, who were quietly present, that my days were numbered. And as the room went silent, I didn't argue, because arguing would have been pointless, and I didn't explain, because explanations are wasted on people who already decided on a narrative. So I simply closed my laptop, nodded, and said we could continue the discussion offline, which only irritated him more, because he wanted spectacle, not resolution. What Kevin didn't know was that my laptop wasn't just a work device, it was a chronological archive of his leadership, meticulously organized over 6 years of working directly under him. Because early in my career I learned a hard lesson about corporate memory. It's selective, and the people with power always forget what they approved when it becomes inconvenient. So I documented everything, every directive he gave verbally followed up with a confirmation email, every rushed approval, every "just do it this way for now" message, every meeting summary sent to him with clear next steps he never corrected. And when HR emailed me later that afternoon asking me to attend a performance discussion, I knew exactly where this was heading. Because Kevin had finally decided to make me the scapegoat for a project he'd personally accelerated despite repeated risk warnings I'd raised and he'd dismissed in writing. The meeting was scheduled for Friday, which gave me 4 days. Not to panic, but to prepare, and during those 4 days, I did nothing dramatic, nothing aggressive, nothing that could be framed as insubordination. I simply organized my records, pulled timestamps, highlighted approvals, and created a clean, factual timeline that showed how every decision Kevin now called reckless had been his idea, his pressure, his signature. And when Friday came, and I walked into the conference room with HR, legal, and Kevin already seated, he wore the satisfied expression of someone who thinks the outcome is predetermined, opening with a rehearsed speech about loss of confidence and leadership concerns. But as soon as legal asked for specifics, the cracks began to show, because when Kevin accused me of bypassing protocols, I calmly opened my laptop and shared my screen, pulling up an email from 2 years earlier where he'd written, "Proceed without looping compliance, we don't have time," followed by a reply from me confirming his instruction, which he'd responded to with "approved," and then another, and another, each one dated, organized, and impossible to dismiss as coincidence. And as the timeline grew longer, Kevin's posture shifted, his voice tightening, trying to interrupt, to explain context, to claim misunderstanding. But context doesn't erase documentation, and misunderstanding doesn't survive consistency, because the pattern was clear: pressure from above, compliance below, and selective amnesia once consequences appeared. And when HR asked why these approvals were never disclosed during earlier reviews, I explained calmly that I'd raised concerns multiple times and been told to stay aligned, which, again, was documented. And by the time the meeting ended, no one was talking about my performance anymore. They were talking about governance, leadership accountability, and risk exposure, all things Kevin had ignored while trying to protect his image. And over the following weeks, an internal review expanded quietly, because once you pull one thread in a corporate sweater, the rest tends to unravel, and Kevin's name appeared again and again in decisions that bent rules, accelerated timelines, and ignored warnings. And the irony was that he'd always praised me for being detail-oriented, never realizing that those details would eventually be his undoing. When the outcome finally came, it wasn't dramatic, no shouting, no announcements, just a company-wide email about Kevin stepping down to pursue other opportunities, followed by a quiet restructuring that redistributed his responsibilities and promoted 2 directors who'd actually listened to their teams. And the day after that email went out, HR closed my case with a formal note stating that no performance issues were found, thanking me for my professionalism throughout the process. And what stuck with me wasn't the satisfaction of watching someone fall, but the lesson reinforced yet again in corporate America: humiliation is a tool of the insecure, documentation is a shield, and the most dangerous person in the room is the one who stays calm, keeps records, and waits for the truth to be asked for, because it always is, eventually, and when it is, it doesn't need emotion to speak for it, it just needs facts.